So, hi Sam, welcome to Rock's blog.
Hello, thank you. Thanks for having me.
You are welcome. So, we're here today to talk about your mockumentary. This
Mhm.
might be a bit of a wasted question, but it is a film about a filmmaker and his struggles within the indie world. I mean, where did the inspiration come from?
That's an interesting question because actually the idea predates any kind of real experience I had of the film industry. It was about when I was about 17, many moons ago now, that I came up with this idea, and it was for a short film. It's supposed to be like a 3-minute film while I was at film school. And it was mostly just out of my love for filmmakers of bad films, really. And then, yeah, I found that 15, almost 20 years on, we started putting in a lot more, and the scope changed. And so, yeah, we were able to put in different anecdotes from stuff that happened on set and that kind of thing. But yeah, funny enough, that whole concept kind of, yeah, predates the film.
Okay. So, who is Remi Milligan inspired by? You said a love of dodgy
Yeah.
filmmakers.
Um, Ed Wood, major inspiration. So yeah, Plan 9 from Outer Space. Tommy Wiseau. I hope I'm saying that correctly. Yeah, filmmakers like that. Well, for us, it was important to kind of identify filmmakers that they weren't trying to make cash grabs. They really believed in what they were trying to do. So they were passionate about, the project. They really believed in it. They were super excited, and they thought that they were creating, either high art or, something with real ambition. Which then, at the point of execution, fell down completely, but still managed to have a following because I think that passion came through. So although these films were, on paper bad films, um, but actually they had a lot going for them, and I think it was that passion and that ambition from the filmmaker that kind of came through the film.
Yeah. I mean, that speaks to a lot because, I mean, films and its success, it's such a torrid world because some people think success is monetary. Some people think success means you get in sort of the A-level festivals. But some of the best films I've ever seen are films that not many people have seen, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah.
Mockumentaries are tricky, and I'm sure we've both seen some that miss the mark, but you seem to just hit every beat perfectly. Um, did you do a lot of research around mockumentaries? Why was this form chosen?
Well, first and foremost, thank you. That's always nice to hear. Yeah, interestingly enough, um, I spoke to one of the reviewers because they said they were trying to refuse to call it a mockumentary, which was interesting. They said, "Oh, we want to go with docufiction," and I was like, "Okay, that's semantics to me, and like it is what it is." But yeah, no. To answer your question, we wanted to do something that wasn't self-aware. So what we noticed is that in the last, I don't know if it's since Spinal Tap really, but maybe in the last 20 years, there was huge flood of mockumentaries. And again, looking at, that time when I first came up with the concept for this film, around that time we had, for example, The Office. But then between then and now, as I said, a huge flood of mockumentaries. So that was actually a dilemma because when we were like, okay, well, let's turn this into a feature. We're like, well, they've been done to death. So what do we do? How do we approach this? And so that's where that concept about making it, completely straight-faced and not self-aware came into its own. Because a lot of mockumentaries, you go into it, knowing that it's going to be a mockumentary. You kind of expect the beats and what the trappings are already. And I think that's quite unfortunate because there's a lot of promise still in that kind of style of filming. So yeah, so that's how really it came about. And I think we had a tiny budget. Um, Ultimately, we shot it on 25K, but when we started off, it was even less. It was like 15,000. And there was no way that we could create a film with relatively high production values that was a narrative, kind of feature. So we said, well, if we choose the mockumentary style, we can put in, talking head style interviews that look a bit like Netflix. We can shoot them from two angles to try and increase the production value, and splice in different footage that was shot on different media just to try and get the production values up, really. So I think that was engineered straight from the start, which was, we want to make a film that is a bit of a calling card on a tiny budget. How do we do that? And so we chose the mockumentary genre in the end.
Do you know what? I'm quite impressed. Obviously, indie films, the budget isn't huge, but you've got your talking heads, you've got footage of other films that were filmed, you've got like some animation in there. There's an incredible amount of different elements that went into all of this. So I mean, A, how did you manage that on a small budget? B, how long did that all take? And how did you decide on all those different elements? Because it really does, it just hits you. I've
I'm
lost you.
muted.
Ah,
Yeah.
there we go. Oh, yeah.
That's a very good question. Yeah, look, we always knew that we wanted to insert footage of Remi's films, and so we actually had to scale it back because of budget. Because originally we had 6 or 7 different films. We had like a sci-fi film in there as well. So I think to answer your question quickly in terms of how did we do it on that small budget? I had to wear many hats, which I think is quite standard for indie filmmakers now, right? But apart from writing and directing, I had to produce. I had to make some of the props myself. So the Satsuman suit that you see in the film, I had to make that myself. I edited. So the actual films in the film were edited by me. So I had to take on that role as well. And obviously, that reduces the costs a lot, because I still wanted to pay my crew. So, I paid everyone. Look, I didn't pay them a lot of money, unfortunately, but everyone was paid, and fed on set and everything.
That's an important,
So that was
important
really
point.
important. Sorry?
That's an important part. Feed your crew.
Yeah, exactly. No, exactly. It was really important. So I didn't want to neglect any of that. So I was left with, a small sum. So that was the main thing, really. I had to wear many hats to get this off the ground. It was interesting because we shot actually all these films on different media as well. So, Killer Pencil, for example, was shot on VHS.
Yeah.
Greek Connection was shot on a mini DV camera. And so we looked at the media of that time and we thought, what would have Remi used? And we kind of went along with that, really. So
And so how long did everything take? So obviously, the conception of it was a long, long time ago, but once you decided you were going to make this film.
I would say on and off, it took about 2.5 years. We were rocked by COVID, obviously. Brexit, because we've got an international cast and crew, so a lot of people had to leave, go back to their home countries to try and figure things out. So that had a huge impact. We were also raising money as we were going along. So, at some point we just didn't have the money. So we're like, okay, we can't shoot. So we shot it in kind of blocks or phases, as I called it. In total, it was 27 shooting days or shoot days. But yeah, spread out across those 2.5 years. So yeah, started shooting in November 2020 and finished in May 2022. Yeah, so quite
And then,
long
we
period.
sort of mentioned all the different elements and the shooting formats. How did you approach the edit? Was that a beast?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. It was, but this like really long production period kind of afforded me the luxury of being able to actually edit as I went along, so that by the time that we had everything in the bag, I handed it over to the principal editor, who then put the whole movie together. But by then, she didn't have to edit the Remi's films, for example. So that was all packaged up. Um, so yeah, I mean that was yeah, pretty intense. Pretty intense. And in terms of editing, I kind of what I tried to do as well is I tried to do all the boring stuff for the editor so that she could just focus on the creative stuff. So what I mean by that is, even the basics, syncing sound, um, categorizing footage, getting down to just the footage that we needed and getting rid of all the bad takes. Just trying to streamline the process as much as possible.
And then how did it end up being 70 minutes? Because I think it's just the perfect amount of time. I was just rewatching it this morning and I was like, yes, it just hits it all.
Yeah, 70 minutes. Yeah, you're right. It's quite a speedy, kind of pacey little feature, really. But
Yeah.
yeah, that was the intention all along. Obviously, as you can imagine, we had lots and lots of footage. And some, some was kind of hard to let go of, obviously, but that's just the way. If it doesn't fit and it doesn't fit the flow, then you have to just be kind of ruthless. Um, so yeah, I think we had originally the first cut was about 85 minutes, um, and there were just parts where it kind of sagged a bit, and so we just started trimming it down. We also found that by trimming certain things, certain scenes or shots were like funnier because of it. And so in the end, yeah, we ended up with this, 70-minute feature, which at the time I hadn't really realized if it was a good thing or a bad thing for festivals in terms of programming. Because I know that's a thing, right? Especially with
Yeah.
shorts, a short can be maybe a bit too long, and with features as well can be a bit problematic when it comes to length. So, um, but yeah, that wasn't really playing on our minds when we finished the film. We just wanted a film that was well paced, didn't sag, kept people's attention throughout.
Yeah. I mean, I think I often find that sort of questions of length in festivals contentious, especially with shorts. Different festivals have different rules, different awards have different rules. I think, if it's a good film, it's a good film, regardless of length, regardless of, it's all about the journey, isn't it? Um, the writing is brilliant and it's very precise, and there are loads of different lines. I think the one this morning that I love the most is talking about the copyright. And, one of the interviews, he's like, well, he probably just didn't get done for it because not enough people watched his films. And it's just, it was sort of a little throwaway comment. And, when you find yourself laughing out loud, was everything really tightly scripted?
Wow, great question. So I looked at this film in kind of layers, right? So we had Remi's films, the behind the scenes of those films, and then the documentary part. So mainly the talking heads and some of the other bits. Remi's films were tightly scripted, so we knew everything that we wanted straight from the start. The BTS was still scripted, but we added actual anecdotes from our own BTS and let that feed into Remi's BTS. So there was a foundation there, but we kind of added to it as we went along. With regards to the talking heads, it was an interesting process because I didn't want there to be a script that then it was obvious that the actors had, read from or memorized. So what we did instead was I created full character treatments. They were like 40, 50 pages long, full backstory of each character, handed it to the actors well ahead of time. Um, and then I showed them the questions I would be asking them. And then I said, look, these are some of the points that we need to hit. Everything else is up to you. So I wouldn't say it was improv because obviously they did work on it, but yeah, that's how we approached those character treatments. Sorry, the dialogue.
Yeah.
Um, So yeah, a hybrid of things. I had the fortune of I had great actors on, who I handpicked right for each role and spent a lot of time. So that was great because that you're then you can rely on them to come up with a lot of the good stuff.
Yeah. I mean, the actors as well, to talk about that. So Remi himself is brilliant. I think he just looks like what everyone would imagine an indie filmmaker to look like. But so how hard was it to bring in, so you said you had an international cast, you're shooting over 28 days. It's a bit of a logistical nightmare in itself.
Yeah, well, it's funny you mentioned Remy. I couldn't actually find the right actor for Remy right until the end. He was the last character I casted, and I looked through 200 different profiles. We had auditions and self tapes, and Reza was actually the very last person I came across. Yeah, so that was interesting. Yeah, navigating that whole process was, we had very little control over it. So, as you said, across those 28 days, across that two year period, COVID, Brexit, um, we basically we had to work out a lot of the schedules around the cast, and figure out when people would be in the country and when we were able to shoot and not be in lockdown. So yeah, it was very kind of reactive, to be honest. We knew what the blocks that we wanted to shoot and what we wanted to shoot at that time, but sometimes we didn't have all the people that, and with regards to crew, we did. I mean, I don't know if you've seen in the credits, but like we've have like 5 sound people credited there because of that reason. Sometimes people just weren't available because of lockdown or whatever, and we use different crew. So, and that's fine. Obviously, when it comes to cast, it's not that straightforward. You can't just replace people and get people to sit in. So yeah, we had to. Yeah, we were kind of at the mercy, unfortunately, of all those kind of complications and people's schedules.
Yeah. I know. I mean, it's a whole different ball game, isn't it? 'Cause people get booked up, and especially when productions and things. And I think COVID has just taught everyone you've just got to sometimes just fly by the seat of your pants. There's
Mhm,
nothing else
mhm.
to do. You've got lots of sort of little gems, little Easter eggs throughout that sort of talk to cinema, a love of cinema, a knowledge of cinema. Were these just all your little brainchilds? And what's your favorite one?
Ooh. Um, yes, so I'm consider myself a student of cinema. I think you have to be, and that's something that I think came a bit with that realization came a bit with age. When I was younger, it was more a case, oh, never mind what's been done. Let's just move forward and create films. And actually, no, there needs to be an appreciation of cinema. There's so much that's come before us. So um, yeah, that was a conscious decision. So this is a film about making films, about filmmakers, and so yeah, I felt that there we had to, as you said, put a few Easter eggs in there and stuff like that, and that was quite fun. I'd say for me, the one that goes over some people's heads is um, the name that we gave to the character who plays Nick Wade's grandfather in Killer Pencil when they sit in the coffee shop in the cafe.
Yeah.
Um, so he's Jason Karras, who would be the character in The Exorcist. So we thought, okay, well, we've got the actor who played the character in The Exorcist, because we thought this is a film. It's about many things, but obviously it's also about a possessed pencil. What is the most famous, film about possession? Obviously, The Exorcist. And so we looked at that and we thought, oh, we'll just drop that name in and see if anyone kind of notices. And that's my favorite. But there's instances throughout. But it's quite nice, and that's why I think I hope that even though we live in an age where there's so much content and an overabundance, we sometimes don't have the time to like go back and revisit things. But I do hope that sometime, my main thing from this is I hope that people watch the film and then 2 weeks later something clicks and they go, ah, okay, and now I get it, that kind of thing. So yeah, lots of little Easter eggs there for those who are keen to find them. Yeah.
Yeah. No, and those, I think those are the best kind of films. A, the ones that stick with you and you're still thinking about, and also ones that, I don't know, you might be doing something else or watching something else. And as you said, something connects and then you remember that. And that's always, it's always such a joy. So you are going to be screening at Hastings Rocks, which is upcoming. Have you been out and about with the film yet? Has your festival just started? Have you watched it with an audience yet? That's always one of my favorite things.
Yeah, no, I'm really looking forward to Hastings. And a good excuse to actually go to Hastings because I've never been. I have friends out there and they're always pestering me to go out, and this is the perfect chance now. So I'm really looking forward to that. And the festival itself looks awesome. So that's I'm really excited about that. Yeah, we're about 5 months into the festival run now, which started back in October. So yeah, 5 6 months. We've been to a few different places. We were in the actual worldwide premiere, if you like, was in West Virginia. So in front of a US audience. It's also screened in Italy, in Naples. And most recently, we were in Eastbourne. And it's interesting because yeah, we've watched it with an audience, and they all had different. They all kind of reacted differently to it, which I guess looking at where it was screened, it's probably a cultural thing. So, um, in the US, the audience hadn't actually realized that this was a mockumentary, which was amazing to us because we did a Q&A, and I did the entire Q&A as though this was a real story about real characters. And I love that. That was my dream. I didn't think it would happen, but because we did a Q&A after the film, and the questions they started asking me were like, oh, so how did you find out about this filmmaker, Remi? And then I had to think on my feet because I was prepared to, answer kind of the questions that you're asking me
Yeah.
today. Whereas I kind of had to pivot and go, oh, okay, so I'm now acting and playing along. And that was great fun. So, but yeah, they was like super excited about these kind of films in the States. Uh, in Italy, yeah, they liked it. They thought it was a bit sad as well. They said it was towards the end. They thought that the character, obviously, they knew was fictional, but it felt as though he really had gone missing, and that despite him being a bit of a problematic person, but ultimately, deep down a good person, it was unfortunate that he went missing. And they said that was probably the fact that the actor who played his mum was so good at selling her, being his real mum. And so they made that connection. I thought, oh, that's actually really sad that we've got this character and she's, her son has gone missing. So that's how they saw it. In Italy, and so different cultures picking up on different things, and that's really fascinating to see. But for me, it's so important to be able to watch the film with an audience, and just see what people are thinking, how they react, expecting people maybe to laugh at certain points but not, and laughing at others. It's very interesting. So yeah, I'm looking forward to see how it's received in Hastings, really.
Oh, great. Yeah, no, it's always a mixed crowd at a festival. But last year, it was actually at Brighton. We had sort of this Canadian mockumentary play, and yeah, people loved it. I think it's a genre that really appeals to people. I think it's open to everybody, and like you said, it's open to such different interpretation, which is always a joy.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Well, Sam, I'm going to end it there. Thank you so much,
Thank you.
and look forward to the screening.